My neighbor falsely complained about me to the municipality, claiming I disturbed him with parties. So, I recorded his parties, sent the evidence, and he was fined and evicted from the neighborhood within a month. I never imagined the conflict with my neighbor would escalate to this extent, especially since I've never been one to seek out disputes or petty quarrels. I lived my life quietly. I didn't host loud parties, never disturbed anyone in the neighborhood, and always respected my neighbor's privacy, avoiding anything that might bother them. But suddenly, without any warning, I received an official notice from the municipality. It cited a complaint against me for repeated disturbances caused by parties held at my residence, or so they claimed. I was stunned. How could my neighbor, whom I'd always seen as ordinary, accuse me of such lies? There had been no warning, no attempt at dialogue. He never knocked on my door or told me he was bothered by noise. Instead, he went straight to the authorities, leaving me shocked and bewildered. As days passed, however, the neighborhood began to change. I noticed that the real noise and disturbances weren't coming from my house. They were coming from his. Cars parked for hours, loud music that could be heard even in nearby homes, laughter and shouting that sometimes escalated into arguments. Other neighbors started complaining too, and I realized I'd been the victim of something bigger. My neighbor was trying to shift the blame onto me to divert attention from himself. I wasn't the type to stay silent or let things slide without proof. So I set up my small camera by the window facing his house and started recording everything that happened on weekends. I captured footage of the cars coming and going, the blaring music, and sometimes even shouting and commotion. It wasn't easy. I had to move quietly to protect my own privacy and avoid confrontation. Over weeks, I calmly gathered evidence, compiling a detailed file for the municipality with videos, photos, and a timeline of the parties he hosted. When I filed the counter-complaint, the municipality took the investigation seriously. It didn't take long before I received a call from officials confirming that my evidence was sufficient for action. My neighbor was fined a hefty amount and formally warned to comply with regulations or face harsher penalties. But what I didn't expect was that things wouldn't stop there. Within a month, things began to shift. His friends stopped coming, the cars disappeared from in front of his house, and the neighborhood gradually regained its peace. Then came the eviction notice, shocking everyone, especially the neighbor who had tried to pin the blame on me. During this time, communication between us was nearly non-existent, just sharp glances and bitter, brief exchanges if we crossed paths. But what no one knew was that what happened behind the scenes was far bigger. There were hidden secrets, deeper motives, and confrontations yet to unfold, and as we wait for that, the story continues. After my neighbor was fined and evicted from the neighborhood within a month, I thought the story was over, that peace would return to my life. But the truth was far more complicated. In the first few days after he left, the neighborhood gradually regained its quiet, and my neighbors began looking at me with respect. Yet deep inside, I felt a strange emptiness. The neighbor I used to see every day, despite all the problems, had suddenly vanished, leaving behind secrets and unanswered questions. Soon after, anonymous messages started arriving. Veiled threats, cryptic texts from unknown numbers, hinting that the matter wasn't truly over. I began to feel afraid, not just for myself, but for my children, who played outside in the neighborhood. And it wasn't just threats. Strange things started happening. Broken objects, shattered windows in nearby homes, and neighbors reporting mysterious thefts and assaults. It was clear someone was trying to spread chaos, and my former neighbor might not have gone as far away as I thought. I went to the police again, but they didn't have enough evidence to link these incidents to him, especially since he no longer lived in the area. Desperate for answers, I reached out to some of his friends and relatives. They told me about his dark past, previous troubles in other neighborhoods, unresolved conflicts. I started to realize that what happened with me was just a small part of a much larger story. Amid all this, I had to stay strong and wise, to protect my family and my home from any potential threat. But beneath the surface of this struggle, something else was waiting for me. Something that could change everything I knew about my former neighbor, and everything I'd been through. After the mysterious threats and incidents in the neighborhood, I realized things were escalating far beyond what I'd expected. No matter how hard I tried to relax and live my life with my family, events kept tightening their grip on me. One night, as I sat with my children, I heard loud banging on the door. I opened it slowly. No one was there, just a letter lying on the ground. It was written in cryptic handwriting with an explicit threat. "This isn't over. We'll be back." I knew then. My former neighbor hadn't accepted defeat. Someone was behind this, maybe even working with him. I decided to talk to the neighbors. Some complained of strange occurrences, unfamiliar cars watching the area, unknown voices at night. But what shocked me most was how some once friendly neighbors now avoided me, as if afraid of something. Digging deeper into my ex-neighbors past, I searched his old neighborhoods and uncovered unsettling stories, disappearances, unsolved crimes, buried secrets. That's when I discovered a shadowy figure tied to him, maybe an accomplice or an old enemy. Daily surveillance became my routine. I installed new cameras in strategic spots and documented everything meticulously. Yet, beneath the tension, I faced an internal struggle. How do I protect my children from this constant fear? How do I deal with neighbors now eyeing me with suspicion? Then came the final blow, an anonymous call. A cold voice warned, "It's not over yet. Wait for it." Their words struck like lightning. What had started as a false complaint had now become a real battle for safety, for dignity. But the secrets aren't all uncovered, the hidden conflicts aren't all exposed, and the twists that will rewrite this story, they're still coming. I never imagined that a false complaint from my neighbor would spiral into a chain of events that would shake my entire life and affect everyone around me. After the threats and the eerie, unexplained occurrences, things took an even darker turn. One morning on my way to work, I noticed a black car parked suspiciously close to my house. No visible license plate. A surge of panic hit me. I quickly snapped photos and sent them to the police, but that was only the beginning. Anonymous text messages started flooding in, veiled warnings, even photos of my home and my children. The privacy I'd always taken for granted was gone. Someone was toying with me, dragging me into a psychological nightmare. Neighbors who'd once offered support now avoided me, as if terrified of being linked to whatever shadowy force was at work. Desperate for answers, I changed tactics. I hired a private investigator, laying out every detail of the ordeal. He dove in, piecing together the chaos I'd endured and tracing it back to my ex-neighbor's past. What we uncovered was chilling. A network of individuals tied to him. Operatives who lurked in the shadows, using fear and intimidation as weapons. This wasn't just a personal vendetta. It was part of something bigger, a web of conflicts and grudges I'd stumbled into. The real shock? My former neighbor wasn't just some petty troublemaker. He had a tangled history of financial and legal battles and might have been a player in this dark underworld. Then, a new lead from the investigator sent a fresh wave of dread. Before his eviction, my neighbor had been plotting something far worse, personal revenge, or maybe even chaos for the whole neighborhood. I was no longer just a victim. I was staring into the abyss of a world I never knew existed. Balancing my family's safety with facing this faceless enemy became a daily torment. Strange accidents dogged my every step. Close calls on the road, eerie breaches of my online privacy. Through it all, I had to stay strong. For my kids, I pretended life could still be normal, but inside I knew the real battle hadn't even begun. This story isn't over. There's more to uncover, more lies to untangle. With every step forward, I realize I'm not just a pawn anymore. I've become a player in a game where deception, injustice, and revenge all collide. After all the threats, surveillance, and unexplained events, I finally reached the breaking point. With the private investigator's help, I gathered irrefutable evidence linking my former neighbor and his shadowy group to every attack on me and my family. Recordings, messages, testimonies from other neighbors who'd suffered in silence. It was all there. On the decisive day, we set a trap with the police. And just like that, they arrested several individuals terrorizing the neighborhood, including my ex-neighbor, moments before he could execute his final plan. Days later, official word came. They were banned from the area for good with strict legal restrictions keeping them far from us. Life finally returned to normal. My family and I could breathe again. But this ordeal taught me something crucial. It taught me that patience, documentation, and refusal to back down can turn suffering into victory. That no matter how hard darkness tries to bury the truth, light always finds a way. And that this wasn't just a fight against a cruel neighbor, but a testament to human strength when we choose to stand our ground. In a world full of secrets and injustice, there's always that whisper. Stay quiet. Just endure. But the truth? Those who stay silent too long lose everything. This story was about patience, strength, and justice, but also about confronting oppression, no matter its form. Follow Max Fables, because we don't just tell stories. We open eyes that have been kept shut.